Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here, the man who talks to machines, your gnosis voice of reason and truth. Well, one of the things that's come to my attention, someone pointed this dude out to me. And I always take anything pointed out to me as kind of a omen or a push to research someone. And certainly, this is an interesting and not interesting person in general. He calls himself the medical medium, which is interesting, and he claims he's the only one, which, of course, is a complete and total lie. Like just about everything else he states is a bunch of nonsense. I would say he's about 95% madness and 5% kind of interesting. We have to be very careful with people like this, and his whole story, his background story of his contact with some sort of entity, and let's make sure we understand entity, is quite disturbing, basically. There's nothing fascinating about it, and I find it, as a person who is well-versed in the occult sciences, contact with spirits, everything. And of course, I rarely state it, but I have contacts to high-level spirits from the Lemurian and Atlantean areas who are medical doctors who give me information as well. But what he's doing here is he's using this entire ruse of contacting spirits or a spirit talking to him to pull the old Benny Hinn routine, meaning the fact that because he really practices medicine without a license, he makes all sorts of ridiculous medical statements that he should not be making. And this is sad to all alternative practitioners because people like him go out and do it and they seem to get away with it. He's got the usual cast of corrupt characters, Tony Robbins. Anything that Tony Robbins puts his support behind, I would run as fast as I possibly can. Then I would get on a jet and I would go faster because he gets involved in anything that will be self-promoting for him. So he's never going to come out and talk anything negative. He's going to jump on the bandwagon of people that have millions of followers so that they can be drawn into his web of deceits. Now, Tony Robbins is an interesting guy. His goofball little metaphysical self-help books are okay, and they're very low level. And the bottom line is that he makes rich people feel good about becoming rich. As with all these kind of systems, very few people are really successful at it. He jumps behind a whole bunch of goofballs, including the one that has the electrical multi-wave oscillator system that he claims helps him. Now, him being a giant and having a brain tumor that made him grow bigger has certain medical problems, so I guess he has his interest in this field. But it doesn't mean that he has any kind of way to interpret information. And he doesn't. He's a self-helper. He's been fortunate and pushed that he made a lot of money. His whole story is a little bit bizarre, and I'm going to make another video on it. But in general, he's also being Anthony William, being located out of Los Angeles, apparently has a celebrity following to some degree. Again, red flags, everybody. Run for the hills. But let's get into his weird story that, of course, he doesn't really have a metaphysical background, and, of course, hasn't tried to train himself in anything that I'm familiar with. And, of course, like anything, if you go out to the public and get enough people following you and you give them basic good information, get them off eating Cheerios and tricks and all the other stuff and have them get off all the fast foods and stop living on garbage, you tend to get results. His message is mixed. He doesn't understand so many things, like he doesn't understand how the liver works. He doesn't understand how blood sugar works. This guy doesn't understand anything because he's trying to be different. And by trying to be different and not following a standard medical procedure, saying that he's getting information from this entity he's talking to, separates him from the rest, because all he's doing is making money off of basically practicing medicine without a license, and he should not be allowed to do that. And the authorities to be should go after people like him, and there's many people like him. have been doing this in different alternative fields, and it's really bad for everybody. Secondly, it allows some people to make claims while other ones can't make claims, so it's very unfair. So this is something that we have to be aware of. Now, his story is just ridiculous. And as an occult scientist, this is basically my original tradition, moving into what now is scalar radionics with a lot of blending of the ancient and the new. And of course, my scalar, quote, radionics, it's not really radionics in the traditional sense, is a whole new field of subtle energy empowerments, or what I like to call the vital force energy empowerment. It's a very unique system that I've developed over the last 50 years, coming from all of my guides and everything else. People love to say this and talk a bunch of nonsense. So his story is, we'll make it short, sweet, and stinky. At 4 years old, an entity, and it's an entity, appeared to him in his bedroom. Of course, at 4 years old, you would remember that, and secondly, you wouldn't be screaming every night. Well, I've known 4-year-olds that have been plagued by things like the Greys abducting them, and their life is terrorized. They never get over it. So at 4 years old, they came in and they talked to him, and he knew at 4 years, goo, goo, gaga, me want milk. Oh, here, spirit, teach me medicine. So the whole idea is, this is the absurdity of it. First of all, spirits don't do this, and they don't approach children like this. And if they are, they're like the typical abductees that we see that claim that have extraterrestrial contact. They must be the stupidest ETs in the world, because they contact the lowest level idiots. Now, the problem is, contacting a 4-year-old child and expecting them to do something is the absurdity of absurdities. He also claims that this is the second most high being in the universe. He doesn't mention it. He doesn't use any kind of angel terminologies generally. He's not talking religious-wise, because that would hurt his business. So the second most high, which basically in the Christian tradition would be Jesus. There's God, there's Jesus, and there's a whole bunch of other hanger-oners. So that's what he says, and it's a very nasty entity. As far as I'm concerned, the way he describes everything is that he's in contact with a demon, which he claims that he is against. But the bottom line is, this is certainly not a loving, caring spirit. I know what loving, caring spirits are, because they guide me. They don't threaten me. They don't try and kill my pets. They tell me how to save my pets, how to save other people, how to have technology. No, but that's what they did with him. The fact that people buy into this garbage is the reason why we have this really dysfunctional world we live in. That he's been able to go in there to get around the medical licensing. The spirits talk to me. As I said, I call it the Benny Hinn reality. Now, Benny Hinn, like so many other ones, have been Christian healers. And how can they get away with that? How can they heal people? Because they don't heal people. It has nothing to do with them. Benny Hinn doesn't heal anybody. It comes from God, Jesus. So, as long as you saying you're not doing it, then you don't have a particular problem. So what you have is a loophole in the law that should be closed. But this gets into religious freedoms and everything else. And of course, he's well aware of this, and that's the reason why he's actually done all this stuff. So, I mean, his story is so garbage, and people are impressed by it. The woman who contacted me on this said, oh, listen to what happened to him at 4 years old. Do you remember what happened to you at 4 years old? And why you would be impressed by a story of a demonic entity coming to somebody promising stupidity. So apparently this went on for a while, and at 8 years old, this great loving spirit told him in a very horrible way that his grandmother had lung cancer. And of course, we could verify this, but I don't think we're going to be able to. We should know whether she was diagnosed. Medical records are kept for years. She's not that old. Why don't you show us the medical records, Anthony, that she actually had this condition and I'm assuming was cured from it? Because, we're not getting any cures. He said, so apparently the spirit told him to go tell his grandmother that she had lung cancer, and she went and checked it out. It was real. And at 8 years old, of course, he understood all this stuff and knew how to handle it and wasn't terrorized by the fact of an entity standing behind grandma at the dinner table talking to everybody. And of course, seeing entities, having them all around, it's perfectly normal. It's part of Hollywood, right, buddies? So this is just the most ridiculous nonsense. This is traumatizing. As I said, I've worked with children traumatized by being abducted by extraterrestrials. So the whole idea is that this kind of stuff is unbelievable. But, that's what you get when you want to get around the fact of not really training yourself, not becoming a medical doctor, but you want to give out your basically what is considered treating people with herbs and other things that he thinks is special. He thinks he invented cat's claw. Nobody used cat claw until I used it. Oh, except 2,000 years ago. So this entity again, and then he's working with it, and then he comes to a point where, how did he get dedicated to this path? How was he forced? Well, apparently, to summarize these things relatively quickly, his dog started to drown to death. So instead of the entity going there and saving the dog and bringing it to him to show him the great loving spirit it was, to save that, he had to be blackmailed into it. The only way he could save his pet was by telling the spirit that he would go on this path. And instead of the spirit lifting the dog out of the water, bringing it to him and everything else, he had to dive down into the depths of the water and save the dog and drag him up. Like that is even possible to do. Most likely a dog going underwater like that would have died and would not have been able to be revived unless you had some CPR training or something, which I'm sure the spirit knows. CPR, I want to die. So the whole idea is that this is the kind of spirit he was. So this isn't a spirit that's loving and caring and working with you. It's something that threatens you, that kills your pets, that does all those things, and he wants to pass on the information from this. But the bottom line is that there's absolutely zero information coming from this spirit realm that has any value, that is new, that is anything that hasn't been around for thousands of years. Now, by the way, there is a medium, and I always forget her name, that did a lot of work on mediums, or basically talking to the dead, out of Arizona, a woman who's written several little books. They're on Amazon. As I said, her name escapes me. And she used to actually go out and test mediums. And one thing that she found out was the fact that mediums have a lot of good information on medical situations for you, especially if you're a relative. And they didn't have much information on anything else, how to win the lottery, what's happening next week, but they could tell you what's happening with you personally, which is very interesting. This has been going on for hundreds or thousands of years. I've spoken to, over 35 years ago, a medical medium who is been able to tell you what's wrong with you. Not a very good one that I went to, but regardless, this is nothing new. Psychics can tell you physical things that are wrong with you. It's all part of the psychic process. He wants to, of course, practice medicine without a license, and the way he does it is by pulling this ruse, which is insulting to everyone. Because as I've stated, there is absolutely zero information of any depth coming from it. He doesn't know anything about even the basic functioning of modern time understanding. He has an understanding of health and nutrition that goes back about 35 or 40 years, which is probably when he started learning things in general. The fact is it's the same old garbage that he gives, and he doesn't understand what a carbohydrate is. He doesn't understand how your liver assimilates sugars and anything else. He knows nothing about that whatsoever. A matter of fact, on one of his mediumistic talks, and they're not really mediumistic talks, his opinion, him giving medical advice, he's talking about diabetes and sugar, and he is cooking at the same time, which he likes to do. So what he's making is a pasta dish. He's making macaroni and cheese. Great thing for diabetics to eat. He's also filling the pot of water with water right out of his sink, and in general, doing things wrong. The point is, pasta is a poison to the body. It's just white flour. It's as simple as that. And we can go into it further. The reason the Italians tend to do a little better is they're using a particular type of pasta, and they don't cook it a lot, called al dente. This means the fact that it goes through your system slowly, it's hard to digest, and doesn't hurt you like normal pastas would. But he wouldn't know that. Of course he knows nothing. His dumb demonic spirit is too busy doing whatever demons do. So the whole idea is that this entity and spirit that he's talking about, as I said, is far from that. So basically, the only way the spirit would get him to do anything is killing his pet, and by him saving it, He goes, I mean, what a comic book story that is. So, as I said, things don't work like that. Spirits don't work like that. It's nonsense. He also doesn't understand parasites or anything else, thinking that all parasites are large and they either kill you or you kick them out. This, of course, is the absurdity of absurdities. People can have all sorts of parasites in their bodies, and you don't necessarily kick them out. They're not giant worms. They're just parasitical. Now, this has been shown by many people, particularly the famous Hazel Parcells, who spent her career working on parasites and getting a huge community to follow her and lots of success, just like he claims he gets. Now, I don't know how true that is. Parcells was a very interesting healer. She had a lot of good information. How much of the parasites are not work, but bottom line is that parasites are a serious problem with everybody, as is viruses and funguses. One of the things that he likes to, so this demonic entity guides him, and we get no new information, no, we don't use this or a special substance. He's going to and using regular herbals. And he's using them in a very poor fashion and doesn't know about a lot of more unusual herbals because he's working with Stupid Boy. A Stupid Boy the ghost. Casper the demonic ghost. Yeah, I'm the medical medium. So the whole idea is that, and then of course, people jump on his bandwagon. And of course, should you be surprised with that? Should you be surprised? I mean, who is people like movie stars anyway? They are people that basically don't do anything but interpret other people's material. And it's certainly, while we all love good movies, certainly this is a very low profession. Why should we think that any of these people know anything? And it doesn't matter whether they're educated or not, because there are some actors that have went to Ivy League colleges. David Duchovny, I believe, is Yale boy. Boy, there's another genius boy. I'm David Duchovny. I'm very angry. I'm David Duchovny. I'm very mad. I'm David Duchovny. I'm very happy. So, he's a great actor. So the whole idea is that all these people that get involved in these things, why should we give actors any credit? We just see them. And that's because instead of having on every street corner a temple dedicated to man, the great scientist, the people who discovered lasers, the people that discovered how to make electronics, discoveries in biology, etc., we have on corners mythical comic book beings. And since we live in a comic book world, why would we want to know anything real? It's about time you start honoring man who does everything and not honoring these in-between monkey men. But the bottom line is that all the information he gives you is pretty poor nutritionally. Now, some of it, like everything else, I mean, how can you screw things up, are okay. But he has something which is interesting, and I've said it for years. I've been saying it for 50 years, that just about everything is probably caused by viruses, whether that's cancer, whether that's heart disease, or we have viruses in us. Now, we also have funguses, we also have parasites and other things. Now, what is the major dominant problem? Parasites have long-term problems. I believe that because of the nature and the strength of viruses, that these are the main problems. And I believe particularly these, and of course verified by my Atlantean Lemurian doctors, have the fact verified to me that things are viruses. And of course, a lot of viruses started when everybody was getting the jabs, particularly in the 60s. Everybody was getting them then. And then soon that followed after that in the 70s with a whole range of chronic fatigue type systems, which of course I myself suffered from for many, many years. And of course, my Lemurian doctors were able to tell me how to fix that. And of course, I have technologies that work on all these things as well as your other lives like success and other things with the great Dragon Force unit that works on mind-machine contact. So as we move into that, we have to. So this is something he points out. The Epstein-Barr, etc. I had mononucleosis 3 times, I believe. And of course, where did all this come from? Well, we don't really know where these things come from, but there is a problem. with the reality of everybody getting these things after that. Now, it was always thought that these came from green monkeys. What did you say? Yeah, green monkeys. Apparently, there are green monkeys out there. I guess they live in green trees. And it used to be these vaccinations were made in green monkey kidneys because these diseases, including things like AIDS, are not really normal for humans to have, but they are common in different animal species, particularly monkeys. So this is where everything comes from, and he's pushing this now. And of course, all the youngums, I'm always amazed the youngums out there because they don't do any kind of research. But, you know, once you've reached my age and you're pushing 70, I have a wealth of information that I know how to interpret properly, reaching the state above human as a Gnostic ascended type master. I know how to interpret all this information to the proper level. And of course, very few people can do that regardless of their education, just like the problem we have with regular science. Yeah, their head is filled with statistical data, but can they apply it to the real world? No. That's why nothing happens. They can't figure out how to use it to do anything with it. They're too caught up in the dogma of it. Now, he goes into all this stuff, and that's one of the things that I do believe he has correct. I do believe that Epstein-Barr and these types of things that have been generated or found in the last 20, 30 years have created a whole line of problems. And as such, everybody's infected with these viruses and many other ones. Does he have any ways of getting rid of this other than using herbals? Well, he doesn't talk about using anything else because that would give credit to somebody else, particularly oxygenators and so forth, which I've used for years. And of course, there are herbals that help in all these areas. There are antibiotic herbals. There are also antiviral herbals as well. And if you make them yourself and use them properly, they tend to have great effects. Now, he doesn't do that. He wants you to buy stuff off of Amazon, where he gets a little bit of money from, to do that way. And of course, how many people are going to make their herbs? I certainly understand doing that. And I don't think there's that much of a profit motive in it. But certainly he's making money off of the little garbage that Amazon gives you as a referral fee. He has a series of books as well, talking about them. I have a couple of them. I'm working my way through them, and I will come back with more information on that to tell you. But what I've seen, I've watched probably 50 hours of his videos, is he has absolutely nothing new to offer. His so-called spirit, I believe, is not with him. I believe that's an entire comic book made up. That's my personal belief. There's no way he can prove his spirit, and he never will, and I'm not sure that any kind of that information has value unless we can see better results. Now, you know, there are three types of illnesses, basically. There are people who've created their own illnesses. There are people who are sick because they're sick. It's in their genetics. It's part of their reality. And then, of course, there's people that are kind of stuck in between those two, that are still not living a great lifestyle and have some genetic problems. But what most people tend to assist people with are the first type, which is people that have self-created illnesses. You're eating badly, you're not exercising, most people are horribly overweight, and when you get on any kind of a decent diet, you start to see results. It has been thought to, and if you can even give any basis to statistical data, but I think we have to take it as its gross meaning, that almost anybody who's overweight, and most people are 50, 60 pounds overweight, that when you reduce your weight down, that all of these illnesses mysteriously disappear. So the whole idea is that your body is overloaded. It can't get rid of the toxins. When you lose weight, things happen. Now, and you feel better. So anytime, and of course, all these type of people put you on better diets and put you on other things to assist these problems. So as you lose weight, you naturally cure yourself. Your body was not meant to carry that. So that's, of course, why all of these people have some sort of results. He's into a lot of things that, of course, again, are nothing new about them, just like all the supplements. He thinks he invented B12, that he invented cat's claw. Nobody had this. They're stealing all my information. Couldn't be. You're the one stealing all the information, Anthony. This is nothing new. You have not a single thing new. To trace illnesses to Epstein-Barr or these chronic fatigue syndrome viruses isn't new either. Did you find an old book somewhere down at some bookstore in Los Angeles? Did you go to Cliffs in Pasadena and find that book? So the whole idea is that all the things involved there are nothing new. He has nothing new. As a matter of fact, since he wants to be different, he's actually giving out bad information that is dangerous. So to think that it's okay to eat all these other sugars and etc. because honey and maple syrup, well, your body can your sugar is sugar, and while these on the glycemic index tend to be a little lower, some but not very much than other sugars. And in general, you got to talk about is that processed sugar, even white cane sugar, is a natural product. So all of this stuff and is a little ridiculous. So to think that he knows what he's talking about there. He goes on a couple of other tangents as well, but linking a lot of illnesses to fighting viruses within you is nothing new, and certainly is something a little bit better than we hear from most other people. Now, the problem with the particularly medical doctors on YouTube and other places is that they don't talk about this much. So when he comes out and talks about something that's very old, it appears to be new and fresh. It's not. And they don't talk about it for many reasons, and I'm not sure why. But you got to remember they're medical doctors. They're as dumb as rocks as well. So you don't hear a lot from that. And of course, parasites have been very popular. And of course, he doesn't believe in parasites, as I've mentioned. And there are people treating that. So what is good? What is good for you? What works for you is, of course, your journey in this world, because illness is a way of teaching you in a harsh way, but a effective way. So all of this is part of the bigger picture of the healing industry in the last 40 or 50 years. There's nothing that he's talking about that is new, nor does he have any training with it. To think, as I said, cat's claw, which comes from South America, has been used for 2,000 years. I guess he just discovered it, huh, Anthony? So did Tony, baby. So the whole idea is that we have to understand that. So he gives a lot of bad information, and his basic medical information that he's trying to give out with his nutritional data is not very good either. He misses a lot of stuff. He thinks that, as I said, B12 is special. Everyone knows that you probably are deficient in B12, anybody who's into supplements. And all the other things he does. The pushing of zinc, well, this is known that zinc everybody is deficient in, and that this is a great help to the body, as is magnesium, other things. That magnesium, I think, works in like 2,000 processes in your body, and most likely you're deficient in it. So all of these things are certainly not breakthroughs. There's nothing new here. His spirit has not told him to do this or do that, while other people have used things like oxygenators, like pool shock, the MMS stuff, which is a great oxygenator. He has none of that stuff because he doesn't want to get involved in things that are potentially different, where he could then have problems legally. So he stays away from everything except the same old nonsense. The other problems with him is, of course, he thinks that juicing somehow is something he invented. And he thinks that celery is a great vegetable. Now, juicing has been around again for, I don't know, it's been popular, started probably 50 years ago, if not sooner. People have been juicing for a long, long time. And it was big for a while. And of course, he's bringing it back. It's big when he was a teenager or so, probably. So now all he's doing is regurgitating the old things that people forgot. Now, juicing in itself is very interesting, and of course, many people claim miraculous cures from that, because what is really juicing? Juicing is getting rid of the hard casing of whatever the items are, whether it's celery or an apple, and just getting what technically is what your body uses, the nutritional things. Now, you don't get much out of pulp necessarily, but the fiber and everything else does help your body. It's been thought recently that juicing is not good for you because it's like taking fish oils. You're concentrating oils that are unnatural to the body. And of course, fish oils are one of the worst things you can take, and they're full of toxins and everything else. But the bottom line is that juicing is not necessarily thought to be the best. But juicing has never been fruit or vegetable. You generally, when you juice, you put a combination of things in there, so you have more of a combined vitamin type drink. And again, you have to be careful not to take too much of it. Now, he's into celery. Now, celery has very little nutrients in it. One of the things it does do is that it's going to shoot up your blood sugar. And secondly, what it's going to do is you are going to be close to the toilet. I hope you are. He doesn't say any of this stuff, but part of the therapeutic effect is that he's flushing out your system with something that basically is a laxative. There's very little in celery juice. And if you just drink a green juice like that in the morning, you're going to lose weight and you're going to cleanse yourself to a degree, meaning you're going to get some results from it. So if you're one of those self-caused illness people like 90% of the population is, you're going to get some results from that. Again, celery juicing is not new, as juicing in general. They've had juicers for many years. It was a big fad. I don't know. Was that the 80s or 90s when everybody was juicing? But of course, you young'uns out there say, oh, this is new from Anthony. Yeah, juicing. I think he invented the juicing machine, didn't he, Margaret? So the whole idea is this is the kind of stuff that we run into. Now, I hate to criticize anybody that apparently is helping people get well, since there's not a single person that isn't sick or won't become sick. So let's face it, it's the precursor to death, and we're all going to die. But there are a lot of better things to do than what he's offering, and his skewed way of looking at nutrition and other things is generally not the best way to go. And secondly, none of his information is new. He likes to add in recipes and other things, and as I said, most of those recipes are inappropriate. To feed a diabetic, pasta is about as stupid as you can get. But he likes to mock this stuff and everything else. But we know well that carbohydrates and fructose are not good for you. He also likes to debase the problem that fruit isn't the best thing for you. Now, I'm not sure anybody has actually said that. He claims everybody says that, but certainly fruit, there's nothing special to it. Fruits have been altered and made to be very high in fructose because that's it. You want a watermelon that tastes like, a cucumber? And I've had many of them because they're not sweet enough. Well, you don't want that. So you want a sweet watermelon. So they've increased the fructose in them, making fruit not only something that has been highly changed over the many years, but very high in fructose, which your liver doesn't handle. He also thinks that fat is bad, particularly fat from that goes to the liver, which couldn't be further from the truth because he doesn't understand how the liver works, but he's written an entire book on that. He doesn't understand how fructose and the liver have problems and so forth. There's a lot of misinformation out there, like alcohol is bad for you. You know, the people who live the longest, the Japanese, drink a lot of alcohol. Alcohol cuts down your blood sugar, and there's nothing wrong with it used in small amounts. As a matter of fact, it's very good for you. Another one of those stupid things that have been demonized by so many people out there incorrectly. So we'll end with part 1 here, and we'll pick it up in part 2.